Hello everybody, I'm the owner of an Etsy shop called It's Yarn Good, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this no-sew turtle. For this project you're going to need a multicolored Vernat blanket yarn for the shell, a solid color for the flippers and head, a 8mm hook, some safety eyes, and stuffing. We are going to start by making our turtle's head, which I'm using this solid purple for. So we start that by making a magic circle of 5. So we wrap our yarn around our fingers, cross it over, bring it out, and bring it out again, tighten that. And now we are going to, when I said we were doing a magic circle of 5, that means we're going to put 5 single crochet in this magic circle. So we're going to bring that through and then bring this through both loops on our hook, and that's a single crochet. Now we do that 4 more times since we just did 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that is a magic circle. Now we can just pull this to make it tight. And for our next row, we are going to do 5 increases, so that'll be increasing all the way around. But we skip this loop here, which was made by the magic circle, and go into our first single crochet first. So we go into that, and I'm going to go over this tail to make it a bit more secure. And then we do an increase. So we put 2 single crochet in this stitch. So, just if I can grab it, this hook is kind of twisted up, so that'll makes it a lot harder. So I'm going into my first stitch, going over this tail, 1 single crochet into this stitch, and 2 in this stitch. So that's an increase, 2 in the same stitch, and you're going to do that a total of 5 times around. So I've done 4 increases so far, and this is my last increase I'm doing. But before we go into our final stitch, I'm going to take some loops from the loop we made with the magic circle, take that, and then go into our next stitch to make that a bit neater looking. So then I'm doing an increase, so 1 and 2. Then for the next row, we are going to be doing a pattern of single crochet, increase. So single crochet in the first stitch and an increase in the next stitch. And you're going to repeat that 5 times. So you will have 15 single crochet around, or stitches around. I'm going to display it first. So 1 single crochet in this first stitch and an increase in the next stitch. And I'm going to repeat that all the way back to my stitch marker. So now we have that, and for the next 3 rows we are going to be doing single crochet all around. So we have 15 stitches around right now, and we will still have it after we've done 3 rows of only single crocheting around. So I've done 3 rows of only single crocheting, and I can move my stitch marker. And now I'm going to put my safety eyes in. So grab my safety eyes, and I'm going to put them in the 4th row with the magic circle counting as a row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to put them 3 stitches apart. So that one there, and 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th stitch. And once we put our backings on, we can continue to work on the head. For this row, we are going to do a pattern of single crochet and a decrease 5 times around. So single crochet, and then there are a few ways of doing decreases, but the way that I do it is I grab the front loops of 2 stitches. So there's 2 loops here, and I'm grabbing this front one and the front one of the next stitch, and then I go through it like a single crochet. And then we repeat that a total of 5 times around, so you'll have 10 stitches when you're done with this row. In this next row, we are going to continue with our decreasing, and we are going to do a row of 3 single crochet and decrease, repeated twice to make it a bit thinner for the neck. So 1, 2, 3, and a decrease. Then we're going to do that a total of 2 times, so I'm just going to do it one more time. So now we're going to do 2 rows of only single crocheting, and then we'll be done with the head. So I finished with the neck by doing 2 rows of only single crocheting, and we are going to do fasten off now. So we pull our yarn through everything on our hook, and then pull it through again, and that's fastening off. And I'm not even going to worry about scissors, I'm just going to tear that. And we don't need to worry about leaving a long tail either, since we're not going to be sewing in this pattern. And that's our head. Make sure you stuff it too before we put it on. And now we can move on to these large flippers. For those, we are going to start off with a magic circle of 8. So I'm actually going to wrap it around 3 fingers to make it bigger. Cross it over and make the magic circle. So now, after we make our magic circle, we put 8 single crochet in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And if you're better than me, then you'll probably count and make sure you got that right, but I'm not gonna. So I'm gonna tighten that carefully, making sure not to tear anything. Put my stitch marker in. Now we're going to skip our loop that we made with the magic circle and go into the next stitch. And for this round, we are going to be doing increases all around. So 1 in this stitch and 2 in the same stitch. So that's 2 in this stitch, and we're going to repeat that all the way around for a total of 8 increases. So I've done 7 increases so far, and I'm on my last one now, and I'm gonna go into a loop from the magic circle and then go into the next stitch and do my increase. Okay, then I'm gonna put my stitch marker back in, and this next row is going to be a single crochet and an increase, and we're gonna do that all the way around. Right now we have 16, and after that we should have 24 stitches. And for this next row, we're going to do a pattern of 2 single crochet and an increase, and 8 times around. So we have my stitch marker, 1, 2, and then an increase. So 2 in this same stitch. Then repeat that all the way around. And for the final row, you guessed it, we're going to be doing 3 single crochet and an increase, but that's going to be our final row. So we should now have 40 stitches around, and for the next thing we're going to do, we are going to fold it in half, and we are going to slip stitch across the whole thing. So go into the next stitch and the stitch on the other side, and then slip stitch them together. And we are going to do this across the whole thing. So it's pretty much sewn together, but instead of slip stitches. Now I'm coming to the end of my slip stitches. 1 more, and I'll be done. So now we just fasten off into the last stitch. So fasten off, bring this through, and I'm just gonna tear it because that's easier than getting the scissors out. And now we have one of the larger flippers. Now you just need to make 2 of these, and then we can move on to the smaller flippers. For our smaller flippers, the pattern's going to be pretty much the same as our larger flippers, just smaller. So we are going to start again with a magic circle of 8. So wrap it around my fingers, and we are going to put 8 single crochet in this magic circle. So tighten this a bit, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then for our next row, we are going to do increase all around. So 8 increases. So go into this, skip this, go into this first stitch, and do an increase. Going over this makes it a lot more secure. So that's 1 increase, and now I just need to do 7 more of those for a total of 8 increases. So I am now on my last increase. I'm taking this loop from the magic circle, going into all that, and for this next row, we are going to have a pattern of single crochet and an increase, and that's going to be our last row before we slip stitch across the whole thing. So single crochet in the first stitch and an increase in the next. So 1 and 2, and then do that all the way around, and after that you'll have a total of 24 stitches. So now we have 24 stitches around after doing a pattern of single crochet increase repeated 8 times, and we are again going to slip stitch across this whole thing after we folded it in half. So won't need that anymore, and we can go into the next stitch and the stitch on the other side and slip stitch through it all, and continue to do that across the whole thing again, just like the bigger flipper. And now I can fasten this one off and you need to make 1 more of these, so have 2 of them, 2 of each of these. So now we are going to take our multicolored yarn and start on our shell. So we are going to start it with a magic circle of 8. So make our magic circle, and then we put 8 single crochet in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that's how we start on our shell. For the next row, we are going to do increases all the way around. So skip over this loop from the magic circle, go into our first stitch, and make an increase, and then do that all the way around. So I've done 7 increases, and now I'm on my 8th increase, going into this loop from the magic circle, and then the next stitch, do an increase. And for the next row, the pattern will be single crochet and an increase. So put our stitch marker in, or don't if you don't want to, but I think it makes it easier. So then 1 single crochet in this stitch and 2 in the next stitch to make an increase. And then we do that all the way around. After we've done that, we should have a total of 24 stitches around, and for the next row, we are going to do a pattern of 2 single crochet and then an increase. So 1, 2, and then 2 in the next stitch to make an increase. And then repeat that all the way around. In this final row, we are going to make the rim around the shell. So this whole row is going to be in the front loop only, which means we're going to be taking, there are 2 loops here, and we are going to be taking the front one, and we are going to do a pattern of single crochet and then an increase. So 1 and 2. And then we are going to do that in the front loops only all the way around. So again, take the front loop, there are 2 loops here, take the front one closest to you, single crochet, and then an increase in the next stitch, all the way around. After we've done all that, we should have a ring here around where the back loops have been left. So for now, we can just fasten off of our shell. We can move that, fasten off, bring this through all of it, and then through that, and then we can just tear that yarn or cut it, and then that is the top of the shell. So now we are going to work on all of these pieces we've made. So how we're going to do this is, after we've reattached with this string, we are going to set all of our pieces on upside down on it, pretty much, or as an example of how to show it, and make sure the fins are facing out so that they're kind of curving outward like this. And so that's how we are going to put them on. But in order to do that, we first need to reattach with our multicolored yarn. It doesn't matter where, but I prefer to do it opposite of where we fastened off. So get into the back loop that you left from your last row, bring this yarn through, and then pull all of this through that, and make sure to tighten. So for the pattern we're going to do for this row is going to be two single crochet and a decrease, but we're going to do it through these pieces, and the spacing is very important. So I would suggest doing it exactly how I do it here. So I start, immediately after I fasten off, I start attaching the head, and make sure that the eyes and all are facing the right way. So put that upside down, and we are going to go into the head for the next 3 stitches. So I go into some loops from the head first, and then, so this is technically my first single crochet, and we're doing 2 single crochet and a decrease all the way around. So 1 more single crochet in the back loops. So a single crochet, pull that all through all of this, and then proceed to do the single crochet. Go into the next few loops in the head, trying to make sure it stays about right. Okay, so then for the next one, we're going to do a decrease. So after we've gone through the loops in the head, we take one of the loops from the back loop and the next one, and then we pull our loop through all of that, and then pull that through there. Now we're going to do 2 more single crochet, but one of them is going to be in this head piece. So go into the next stitch, and we're done attaching the head now. You can rewind if you need to see that. I know that can be very confusing, and I'm not amazing at explaining it. So then we're going to do, since we've done a decrease here, and this is a single crochet, so we need 1 more single crochet before we do another decrease. Make sure we're going into the right thing here. So, and then after we do this one, we're going to attach one of our large flippers. And I make sure that the tail is in the body. You can do it so where it's out, but then that means you would have to loop it through this. maybe even with a needle. And this is, I'm trying to make this a no-sew pattern, or no-sew pattern. So we are going to attach this with the next 3 stitches. So make sure you have room for 2 more stitches and go into this one here, making sure the curve is facing out. And then, so we've done 2 single crochet, and we're going to do a decrease in this next one. This may seem harder than sewing, but it's only in explaining. If you know what you're doing, it's a lot better than sewing, at least in my opinion. I hate sewing. So we take these 2 loops to make a decrease, and then bring it through here, and bring that through there. So now we do 2 more single crochet in this. So 1, maybe we can be going over this right now. Oh, I didn't bring that through the right thing. Okay, so we'll stick our hook in the next one, go into the next back loop, bring it all the way through, and I'm going to go over this tail here while I'm doing this. And then we do 1 more single crochet in this flipper, go into the next back loop, and bring that through. So then we're going to do a few more stitches before attaching the back flipper. So for this large flipper, we've done a decrease was done here and 2 single crochets here. And since our pattern is 2 single crochet and a decrease, our next stitch is going to be a decrease. So we've got that. And we are going to do 4 stitches before we go do the back flippers. So that's 1 stitch, technically. And then we do 2 single crochet, 1, 2, and then we do a decrease, and that was 4 stitches, a decrease, 2 single crochet, and a decrease. So I've come to where this row ended, where we fastened off here. So I think I have, let's see, this is 1, so this was our last stitch from this row, but since this is all technically 1 row, we just go into the first stitch of the row, or first back loop we left. So here was our last increase we did in our single crochet increase row in the front loops. This is where we fastened off. So then this will be our first stitch, or this will be our first stitch right here. It's about right below. This is our first stitch because it's right below this last increase, and we can see that there's an increase here, and then this is a single crochet, but so you go into the back loop from this one. You might not need to look at all those to do that. You might be able to just find it, but to make sure it's right, you would want to do that. But before we go into that, we need to get our small flipper and make sure that the curve is facing outward. So we go into that. We're going to go into it for 2 stitches, so make sure you leave room for 1 more stitch when you go into it. So we will go into that. And the last one we did was a decrease, so we're going to do a single crochet next in the next stitch we do, which will be down here for me, and probably should be for you too. There's a bit of overlap, but it will work out fine if you do it right. So here's our back loop. And you can also just follow the same shell pattern without sewing or doing all these on while doing this, and you can just sew these on if you think that's easier. So that's a single crochet, 1 more single crochet into this, into the next stitch or back loop, if I can find it. Should be here. And that's it for this flipper. So then we do a decrease without going into anything, without going to any of the pieces, that is. A decrease. And then we start attaching the next flipper, which is going to be pretty much the same. Make sure it's facing outward. And we are going to attach this one with 2 stitches. So we've done a decrease, was the last thing we did. And then we do go into the next stitch, that next back loop you left. That's 1, and next back loop. And 2. So we're going to do next a decrease, 2 single crochet, and then a decrease before we start our next flipper. So after attaching this last flipper, I did a decrease, 2 single crochet, and another decrease. And now we can start attaching this flipper, this final large flipper. So we go into the first stitches. It doesn't really matter where you place it exactly, but as long as it looks right. So then we're going into the next. Our last thing we did was a decrease, so we're going to do a single crochet into that. I'm going to go over this tail here. And then our next one is going to be a single crochet also. Go into the next one. And then this final third one we're doing in this is going to be a decrease. So take our last 2 stitches and go through all of that. And then that is the end of this row. Now, it's very likely, I'm surprised I didn't, it's very likely that at least one of you guys messed up and there's like 1 stitch or there weren't enough stitches here. And what I'd do is I wouldn't just, don't just destroy the whole thing, because you'll just get frustrated at that point. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that there are 24 stitches around, whatever you do. Whether you do a last thing as a single crochet, if you were missing a stitch, if you were lacking in a stitch, or do 2 decreases at the end if you had an extra stitch. As long as you have 24 stitches around for this row. So, putting my stitch marker in, and the rest is a lot easier. For this next row, we're just going to do single crochet, 1 single crochet, and a decrease. And we're going to do that all the way around. And for this hole here, usually when you do this, there's a hole here. You can just either really tighten this and just not worry about it because it won't be so bad. This one might actually have it too. I didn't do anything for it on this one, so it should end out fine. But if you really want to, just take a piece of yarn or whatever and just tie it through all of this. So we can take, I don't want to leave this hole here, so I'm going to take this tail here from where we reattached, pull it through that, and then I'm just going to tie it somewhere in here. But I'll do that after. You probably don't have to do anything about it, really. It doesn't matter so much that if there's a little bit of a bigger hole here. Okay, so this next round, single crochet, decrease all the way around. So after that row, we should have 16 stitches around, and this next row is going to be just decreasing. So you should decrease 8 times before you get to the end again. So I've done 8 decreases, and now we can start to stuff our turtle. I don't stuff it too much to save on stuffing, and because it's fine if this one's squishy. In fact, it'd probably be fine if you didn't stuff it at all, but it does make the shell kind of come up a bit more when you do. But you don't have to stuff it too much. And for our final row, we are just going to do 2 decreases to make this hole a bit smaller, to be easier to sew it up or fasten it up. So that was 1 decrease I just did, and this is my second decrease. And I'm just gonna fasten off in this decrease. Okay, so we can now cut our yarn, making sure we have a tail long enough to close up this hole. And then what we can do is we can use our hook and loop it through these stitches. So we go behind this first stitch, skip a stitch, go behind the next stitch, and continue to do that for this around this whole hole. That should do it. Then we can tighten this up and tie it off, bring it through, leave a loop here, and bring this through that. So now it's tied off. Now we can hide this thread somewhere in the turtle instead of worrying about cutting it and having the extra yarn to deal with. And then we can hide this thread with our hook also. I hope you guys enjoyed this crochet turtle tutorial. You can find this and more things like it on my Etsy shop called It's Yarn Good. And remember, we can only create because God created first.